She gave it all up, moved across the world, and took a 42% pay cut. Not for the title, but for a chance to start over. No tech background, no guarantees, just guts. Today, Rosslyn Cooper is leading global digital transformation with one bold mantra. Say yes before you think you're ready. Meet Rosslyn Cooper, changemaker, problem solver, maverick leader. My name is Gina L. Osborne, and I'm an Army veteran. I spent 6 years during the end of the Cold War as a counterintelligence agent. I was appointed as an FBI agent, and during my 22-year career, worked everything from Asian organized crime to terrorism. I became the assistant special agent in charge of cyber and computer forensics. And then I came out of retirement and spent 2 years as the safety and security officer at LA Metro. Now I'm here to help you make your Maverick move. Welcome to the show, Roz.
Thank you, Gina.
So excited to have you here because you and I have so much in common.
We do.
But before we go into that, I want to talk about a Maverick move that you made, moving from Australia to the United States.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I would love to. Yeah, about 9.5 years ago, my husband and I made the very bold and risky decision to pack up everything that we owned. We sold most of our belongings, wedding gifts included, and within about 5 weeks moved with 4 suitcases, 4 guitars, he's a musician, and a keyboard, and started this bold new life in Nashville, Tennessee from scratch.
That is insane.
Yeah, most would say so.
So you kind of have this mantra about you say yes before you think you're ready. So how did that play into this decision to make such a bold move?
I think it's just become the theme of my life. Ironically, when I was in college, I was 18, I got my first real corporate job as an executive assistant. I didn't even know what an executive assistant was, Gina, but the CEO of the college that I was studying at literally walked into class one day and said, "Hey, my EA quit. I heard you're really organized. Do you want to start today?" And I froze for a second, and then I thought, no, you know what? Let's do it. Let's see what this is about. And it's really funny, but that has now become a bit of a theme in my life where I just think that there is so much to gain from putting yourself out there and saying yes to an opportunity, even if you don't feel like you're ready for it, even if you're not sure exactly what it means. For me personally, it's opened so many doors and opportunities that I would have never have seen coming. Moving to America has just been another one of those.
Well, and that's what holds people back so often is they give themselves excuses as to why it is that we can't go through that door because we're not ready, as if not being ready is a good excuse.
Absolutely. I think about a book that actually a mutual friend of ours, Winnie, who you had on your podcast recently, she's been my executive coach for the last couple of years, and I have had the most amazing time being under her stewardship. She recommended a book to me called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, and it's an amazing and brilliant new take on imposter syndrome. I think so many times we think because we don't feel like we're capable of something, that it's because we have imposter syndrome. But actually, this book talks about how we actually limit ourselves. It's called the upper limit problem. Mm-hmm. And we self-impose boundaries and limits on ourselves because we feel that we either are not good enough, that it's too good to be true, that it's not okay in life to have success, love, and relationships all be okay at the same time. And I think it's just something that we've got to start talking through as a womanhood or as a peoplehood, because I think so much of it is actually our own upper limiting problem.
I think you're right. One thing that got me to the point where I was ready to say goodbye to the FBI, I found I was doing a vision board, and I found a picture, and it was a ballerina, and she was jumping off a cliff.
Oh, I love that.
And I thought, and beautiful dress. She's not falling. She's just in midair. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm never going to be ready to leave the FBI. It was my home. I loved it. And yet I wanted to do creative endeavors. So when I saw that picture, I thought, you know what? Nothing bad is happening to her. So I'm about as ready as I ever will be. Yeah. So what was the mindset when you were getting ready to make this big Maverick move and leave with your 4 suitcases? What was that mindset? I mean, did you have doubts or how did you feel?
We absolutely had doubts. But we also had this mindset where if we didn't try it, we would probably always live in regret that we never saw if it could have worked. And not to say that we ever moved to America thinking, it's okay, if it doesn't work out, we'll just go back to Australia. We absolutely had hope that that would never happen. And thank God it didn't. And we are thriving in America. I'm so thankful for the opportunities that we've had. But absolutely, going into that moment, there was this moment where we were like, are we really doing this? Oh my God, we're really doing this. Okay. Cool. Like everything could go wrong. We could end up broke and homeless and complete failures. But we were just like, we would always wonder and look back and think, oh my God, why didn't we just see if it would work? And so I personally am just so grateful that we did that bold move. I mean, my husband and I talk a lot about macro and micro change. And for whatever reason, I seem to be able to do macro change pretty easily. Like get your visa, get your move halfway around the world. Didn't really bother us all that much. We did it in literally 5 weeks. And I know that that's something that people can plan years for, and that's absolutely okay. But I think part of one of the essences of who I am and why I'm able to take these risks is because I can handle change quite well. I have a resiliency there that I know how to pivot quickly and kind of problem solve on the fly if I need to.
What do you attribute that to?
Oh, I would have to give my parents a lot of credit. Mm-hmm. I actually was born in South Africa and I grew up there for the first 11 years of my life. South Africans are a very hardy, hardworking people. And my parents instilled in me an incredible work ethic, as well as a desire to really be very not successful in like the materialistic sense of successful, but to do meaningful work, if that kind of resonates. And so I think that it's a little bit of my upbringing, for sure. I have to give my parents credit for that. And then I think there's just a bit of grit in me where I feel like I go into a lot of rooms, meetings, jobs where I feel very ill-equipped personally, but I just have this desire to learn, be curious, and just almost prove people wrong, if that makes sense. I think I'm so young doing what I'm doing, and there's a perception that you have to have ticked all these things off of your list in order to be able to be worthy of some kind of position like this or a role or to be successful. And I just want to encourage people, like your age doesn't matter, your gender doesn't matter, your background, your upbringing doesn't matter. You really can, with determination, with grit, with strong will, achieve a lot.
And you've proved that because when you got here, you took a 42% pay cut.
Crazy.
Fast forward 9 years and you're leading digital transformation and you don't even have a tech background.
I don't.
So you and I have that in common, leading tech leaders without having that technology background. So how did you get to that point?
Yeah, I have to say I'm very fortunate to have had incredible leaders who have really stood behind me, promoted me, encouraged me. I found myself in this global role about 2020 during the pandemic, all thanks to my CFO, my boss at the time of the company that I work for. He literally pinged me in a Teams meeting and said, hey, can I pull you into a call? I'm not kidding you, Gina. I was in a sports bra. I had just got back from walking my dog because, like most people, we went and got a puppy in the pandemic. And this dog needed me to walk him. And I got pulled into this meeting with a whole slew of global executives and basically got fire drilled around a problem and a project that our company had been working on. And I had no idea that was coming, wasn't prepared for that conversation at all. Again, would have definitely put a blazer on had I known. And I remember my CFO, my boss at the time, called me 24 hours later and he said, I don't even want to ask you this because I know what you're going to say. And he said, I've just got a call from our group leaders and they've asked if you would join this global transformation project. And he goes, I don't want to lose you, but I know you're going to say yes. And I'm like, yeah, I am going to say yes, because absolutely I want to challenge. I want to jump onto something new.
Were you intimidated at all?
I wouldn't say so. No, I think I'd like to approach problems without feeling intimidated, but rather just feel like I know that I have a lot to learn. And so any problem that I'm presented with, I think if you can step back for a minute, Lean Six Sigma talks about this as a concept quite a lot. You need to understand current state before you can start making whole-scale changes, before you try to do process improvement and try to reach that elusive zero waste methodology. You need to understand what is done today. And I think I had two things going for me when I put my hand up and said, yep, okay, cool, I'll do this global role. I had a really long tenure with the business across almost every sector in a number of different roles, both finance, project management, and consulting. And so I think I had a level of self-confidence that I knew the business really well. I had a lot of connections within the business, so I also knew how to leverage when I didn't know something. And then I just worked really hard, Gina, to learn what it is about a global ERP. What do you do? How do you do it at this scale? And I had an amazing team behind me as well, which is just, I think, a huge piece of success in any transformation like this. It's not the strength of one person. It is the collective brilliance of an entire team that work together. I know where my strengths aren't and where they are. And I like to think that I know how and when to leverage those and put those puzzle pieces together to build the whole picture.
And it proves how important leadership is that you don't have to be as technical as the people who work for you. You don't have to have the same skills. You just have to know how to lead.
Yeah, absolutely. My team know me as a heart-led leader. And I have a really good friend back in Nashville called Dr. Rob Murray. He has a book called Fighting for Heart. And he talks about leadership as a quadrant flow. And every leader leads from a specific quadrant as a strength: heart, soul, mind, and strength. And I think if you can, as a leader, remember that people is the center of all of that. Regardless of the technology, the AI that might be coming into play, you still have to have empathy and you still need to have that people focus in your leadership style. Once you can remember that we're all humans and we all have different strengths and personalities, what I think is such a privilege of leadership is being able to build a team around those strengths. It's about really creating balance. Like, you don't want a whole team of people that are all strength leadership minded. They will get results, but it's like all they'll care about. They'll railroad everything that you're doing. You can't have only heart-led leaders like me, because you just end up kind of bleeding heart for everybody and you don't get all results. Now, I am a result-oriented leader, but I think it's a byproduct of the way in which I lead. And so that for me is the privilege of leadership, honestly, is how do you find these hidden gems? How do you pull the best out of them? The quieter ones in the room versus the more extroverted ones like me who turn up in an orange suit. Everybody has a really important part to play.
Right. When I became the head of cyber and computer forensics in Los Angeles for the FBI, I had this entire team. I had to figure them out first, but I always say that that's when I first started to lead authentically, was when I couldn't rely on all of those things that some leaders think that this is what makes me a great leader. I had to use my heart. I had to get them everything they needed to do their jobs. I called them my racehorses, and all I had to do was keep them on the track. And as long as they were running, they were doing great things. But I don't think a lot of people realize, or maybe they do, that being a woman in cyber or technology, you're a unicorn. So how does that make you feel when it comes to your leadership style and leading? I would imagine the majority of your people are men. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. I probably am a bit of a unicorn. Again, the orange suit. I'm definitely not a wallflower. But I think for me, I've gone through a journey. Gina, I absolutely made the mistakes in my early career of thinking like I had to fit in. I was one of the only females in the room, maybe at kind of that middle management level. And so, I thought, I've got to do the right thing. I've got to turn up in the black, boring suit. I need to, lead like these men lead. And I'm really thankful. Again, I've had amazing mentors, both like indirect and directly, great managers, male and female, and role models within the organization that I work for today and outside who have really helped me. And I'm thankful at a young age to have been able to recognize that actually, if I turn up as the best version of me, I am better for not only myself, but I'm better for my entire team and I'm better for the entire organization. And so I try to bring that to the table or bring that to every conversation. I know my strengths and I know the things that I can contribute. And I love your analogy of the thoroughbreds on the racetrack, because I think not only do you need to keep them in the tracks, but you also need to keep them motivated. You need to keep them healthy. You need to keep them in fit shape. And so I think part of my mandate when I really take on the mantle of leading a team is, how do I build that culture of that team to be as healthy as possible? And that, I think, is something that can differentiate a little bit towards not feeling intimidated or overwhelmed. If I can add one other thing, I think that's really important for me is I always want to be someone that lifts other people up. I think not to focus too much just on women in technology and women in this leadership space. We have it hard enough already. We don't need to make it harder on ourselves by not being nice to each other. And so I think wherever you can promote, lift up others, give others opportunity, it's something that I'm always striving for. Not saying I'm perfect. We all have room for improvement. But I think that it's important that we recognize that. And I think if you can also find a culture in an organization that is surrounded by everybody that is like that too, men as well, it just makes you better as a team.
I agree. And it's so empowering when you're different from everyone else and yet you show up the way that you were talking about, the best that you can be, because that inspires others and it empowers others to be the best that they can be. And if they see that you're different, then maybe they're different, but they've been trying to hide it. And so now you're empowering them to embrace what makes them different because that's what's going to make them remarkable.
Yeah, it's truly blown me away over the last few years. I would say I've kind of come into my own a little bit. And I feel so encouraged, but also really humbled whenever I have someone reach out to me and be like, Ros, thank you for that. Like I had an example this week. I've been trying to really encourage my team to find balance in their day. And so we talk about the amount of meetings that we have, our back-to-backness, and my team know that they'll find me moving around the house during the day. And I love to sit outside with a cup of coffee at some point in the day, and I'll just take a meeting outside, and I don't hide my background or anything. My team know that they can see me sitting out on my back porch. And one of the ladies on our team this week, she's like, Ros, you inspired me. I'm sitting out on my back porch working today and it's lovely. And it's those moments, but you're right, the kind of confidence piece as well. I've had the opportunity and the privilege of mentoring a couple of our younger emerging technologists in our company this past year. And it's really beautiful. I still feel like I'm so young and ill-equipped, Gina, to be mentoring anyone. But even if I can just impart in them a little bit about authenticity and who is it that you are you turning up as that person every day? The feedback that I get is just that it makes such a big difference in their day-to-day life.
And you will find, I'm a few years older than you, my dear, but you will find that when you look back on your career, that is your legacy.
I hope so.
Yeah.
What a thing to be proud of, right?
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
I remember when I got my very first female squad supervisor. I won't say her name. We'll just call her Olive. She says she listens. So,
hi, listener.
And I had been in my position for 10 years. So I had 10 years of male squad supervisors, and she was my very first female. And I was so excited. And I thought to myself, I am going to mind meld with her, and she is going to know everything that I know. And I was super excited. So I would drag her into my office and, talk about treating people differently, right, as my only female supervisor. And I would just sit her on the couch and I would try and just tell her everything. And she would sit there and kind of roll her eyes and say, can I go back to work, please? Well, she just became the special agent in charge of a field office. And we had a little conversation yesterday over text, and I'll tell you, that type of stuff, you don't know it now, the impact that you have on people, but to watch them grow and really just do all these amazing things, it is your legacy. And the fact that you're doing that now and you get it, because so many times people don't help each other come up. And it is so important to help the people behind you, because that's where you reap all the rewards.
Yeah. Well, you must be really proud. And I think that speaks a lot to your legacy as well, Gina.
Oh, for sure. She's, hello, Olive.
Hi, Olive.
So we want to talk about your superpowers. And one of your superpowers is problem solving.
Yeah.
So why do you think that is like one of the most underestimated leadership superpowers? Because a lot of people think they know how to solve problems, but very few people actually do.
Yeah, I think for whatever reason, I've had a knack of being able to almost zoom out of a problem and see it in its entirety, almost like a puzzle piece that's been like fragmented and pulled apart, and then strategically be able to figure out how you would put that puzzle piece back together to be the best version of itself. I don't know where I learnt it from. My mum will probably have some kind of analogy from when I was a kid. But I love solving problems. My team, when I first moved to the US, quickly found out that if you have a problem on a project, Roz is the girl that's going to figure out how to like help you improve a process, analyze the financials, figure out where that missing money is going or where your problem is. I just have this knack for being able to kind of trace things back, understand the cross-functional impacts that it has. We kind of a bit of a technology terminology, but it's just something that I get a kick out of for whatever reason.
Yeah, and then so you have like an entire process, right, that you do to simplify complexities.
Yeah, I think the first step is that taking that step back, right? You don't want to go into a problem with assumptions, with believing or assuming that it happened the same way that it did the last time you might have seen this problem. Take a step back, figure out what's going on. For me, that's about asking questions, is listen and understand the current state. Then for me, it's about putting a framework together. I have some project management experience in my background, and for me, it's about having what we call a work breakdown structure. So you want to step out. What do you need to do in a specific order? And what helps with that is it brings clarity to that complexity. When you it's a terrible analogy, but we use it quite a bit at work. You want to eat the elephant one bite at a time. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to consume this entire elephant in one chunk, there's no way. There's no way that you will do it. But if you can look at that elephant or that problem in smaller bite-sized chunks and really tackle it one step at a time, what I find really exhilarating about it is it almost builds momentum, because you get one win under your belt, it gets you encouraged and passionate for the next one. And then you realize, those two puzzle pieces have come together. Okay, now I can actually do 3 at once because I can like accelerate, or I can see how they're coming together a little bit more. So I think for me, it's that step back, listen, be curious. It's put that framework in place, that work breakdown structure. And then it's really about showing incremental progress. I know they call it in the technology world like agile delivery, but it's kind of agile, but it's having the strategic piece to it.
Mm-hmm. And when you think about leadership and being a problem solver, I'm sure you've been in crisis situation or chaos. Everybody kind of goes over to the person who's solving the problems, because that's the person they want to follow when it comes to leadership. So having that superpower is so important.
It is, and I'd like to think that through the process that I like to follow very consistently, that framework, actually it rubs off on other people too. And so what you find is that you don't have to end up being the person that everybody comes to, but you've left a little bit of yourself behind in each time you've solved that previous problem, that now that person solves it in a similar way. And so you're almost exponentially multiplying your superpower a little bit, if you will.
Right.
And what I am so encouraged by, my team are demonstrating it at the moment. We just went live in 11 countries with our global ERP this past month. And it's just really encouraging the power of seeing how like kind of repeatability and process being followed in that framework piece can really have an added benefit.
For sure. So communication is also a power tool for you. And you have to communicate across the world, essentially. So how are you able to do that in a way that's going to bring people together?
Yeah, I love that. I think not having a technology background actually works in my favor in this case. I am working on one of the world's largest ERP implementations right now.
Can you tell us what ERP is, please?
Exactly my point. An ERP, most people go, what is that? Well, I love puzzle pieces. And so let me put an ERP into a puzzle reference for you. Most large companies need to be able to put together a lot of information and data in their company, be it HR data, sales data, project information, financial data. And what an ERP does, enterprise resource planning, is essentially pushes all of those puzzle pieces together to form one massive system, one big tool that helps you end to end with your business processes. And so what's been really cool for me is almost being able to take that superpower and help to make it very easy for our business to consume. Again, the communication piece, being able to talk about that ERP in layman's terms, if you will. Try not to use too much tech lingo. And the benefit I have is that a few years ago, I didn't know what half of this tech lingo was either. So again, I just take that curiosity, take that learning, and then I put myself in that person's shoe and think, they probably have no idea what an ERP is. I can't go into a meeting and use too many acronyms. Now, have I been caught doing alphabet soup sometimes too much? Yes, absolutely. But I try to always take stock and think about, I have a problem to solve, be it technology or business process related. How do I boil it down into a very clear problem statement, a very clear impact statement, and then present the options or the solutions that are available with a really clear pros and cons so that a business person or a business leader who's accountable for having to adopt or take on board that decision can understand the decision that they're making.
And having worked for the U.S. government, we have had these rollouts in the past. And they have always been very confusing, and they have always angered a lot of people, especially the ones who pretty much enjoy that status quo. So how do you make that change, and how do you use communication in an effective way to get people all to get on the same bus heading in the same direction?
Yeah. I'm not going to say that we've got it perfect, Gina. We absolutely didn't. We're working very hard right now to improve, even again, after deployment, the perception of what this tool does and the benefits it can bring. But I think if I was even just to look back on some of the lessons learned over the last few years, your ability to communicate to the front line who are going to be the consumers of that product is really important. I talk a lot to my team about people, process, posture, and platform. Platform being kind of the product or the technology. And all of those three things before you even get to technology and platform is so important. Posture being one of the biggest ones. What is the organization's posture towards the change? Have we talked them through the why? Do they understand the benefits that this is meant to bring to their life? And then, of course, are we actually delivering those benefits? Because sometimes those two can be disconnected from each other. I've had the privilege over the last several years of being able to sit in front of committees within our organization, global leadership teams, and really promote and talk about the benefits that an implementation or a transformation like this brings to a company. And I think that in itself, being able to communicate that simply helps to bring people on board.
And I've seen several leaders who I have either worked for or worked around that weren't good communicators. So what do you tell those people when it comes to, because it sounds to me you've mastered this communication thing, but how do, people who can't do what you do are just often left out in left field because they're unable to communicate, they're unable to move people, and all that does is create division within the organization.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's about building the team. If you know that that's not something that you're good at, you're going to want to find a right-hand person that can help you look better. And not to see that person as a threat, but actually to see them as an asset, because 1 + 1 = 3. And actually you can be even more powerful together if you both know, hey, I'm not a great communicator, but I know this person down the road is, and let me pull them in and see if they can help me. I think if you have a growth mindset in that situation, then you'll end up rubbing off on each other and you'll, by osmosis, almost learn some of those communication skill sets. I think if you can't bring someone on board with you, I think it's good to get into a feedback loop where you're willing and able and you have some people that you can bounce ideas and draft communication off of. I very regularly, even though I think I'm a great communicator at times, I have still got some Australian in me, so I can be a little blunt. And I know sometimes that I can go in a little hot and I've got to dial it back. So I have a couple of things that I do. One is I will draft an email or I'll draft a message or a presentation or a communication and I'll save it and shut it down for the night. And I'll come back to it with a fresh set of eyes. There's something about sleeping on something that your brain just churns it over. You come back to it with a different posture, and I think that can help. The second one is finding someone who you respect that's strategic and you can get their input into that messaging. So almost like a sounding board. That would be the two things that I would say has worked for me in the past.
And another thing that you're really good at is the pivot. And when we talk about making Maverick moves, you're going through that door, whether you're ready or not. That's your Maverick move, right? But sometimes you get on the other side of that door and it's not what you expected.
Yeah.
So how do you make that pivot something you're very good at? How can you explain what's the best way to pivot when you find yourself in a situation like that? And how do you avoid losing momentum once that happens?
Yeah, I read a really amazing book this year called Pivot or Die by Gary Shapiro. He is a CEO of one of the biggest technology summits in the world. And it was really interesting because I read the book and I was like, oh, this feels so familiar in a way, but he's put onto words something I think a lot of us, particularly in technology and project delivery, live every day of our lives. And that is exactly what you said, the need to have to pivot. You either have pivoted because something's failed, happens a lot, unfortunately. You got to pivot because something was so successful that now you're like, all right, well, that's up and running. What do I do next? And there's a host of other reasons that you might need to pivot. It might be an external factor, like a pandemic came along. What do I do? And I think for me, being able to acknowledge when something isn't working as quickly as possible is really important. I think you can hold on to a desire or a dream or a project that maybe you've got in your hands past the degree of grace, if you will. So I think one, for me, trying to acknowledge and identify that really quickly is something I think I can see. A real example for me is last year, we had just launched this global ERP in two of our largest regions, and there was definitely some grit in the wheels. We had very fast implementation, very, very quick agile sprints. And these two big regions were basically saying, guys, you need to slow down, because we were already starting to move on to the next 11 countries. And we took a step back and I think realized very quickly, actually, we owe it to those businesses, those regions, to do what we call an optimization sprint. And so we put those other deployments on hold, very quickly pivoted and said, all right, what's some of the key things we can focus on? And again, this is where my framework comes into place. You sit back, you take stock of user feedback, you then put together some solution ideas with your team. You go back to the business and say, hey guys, these are the things that we think could work for you. Do you think that is going to move the needle? Did some analysis of our own saying we think these will bring you some benefits. And our team dedicated that 6 months of last year unexpectedly to that optimization phase. And we're really proud because it had the intended benefits, and then it's had this compounding effect where the next countries that we just went live with, that we delayed from last year, have benefited from that optimization. So I think pivoting can be really powerful as long as you can stay humble. You can identify it really quickly and be willing to say, we didn't quite get that right. Quick, let's pivot, let's do something to fix it. And then you can really be able to measure results. For me, pivoting is all well and good, but you don't want to be zigzagging all over the place. You want to intentionally pivot, measure this success, pivot again strategically.
And I think if you find yourself in everyday life, you can practice pivoting all the time, because how many times do you think you're going to go in one direction?
Absolutely.
Something happens and you go in another, but it's important for us not to fear it. I think people are so afraid of things not working out exactly how it is.
Yeah.
But I learned a long time ago that every crisis comes with an opportunity.
Absolutely.
And you could find yourself in a much better place after you make your Maverick move by being forced to go in a different direction than you would have if you would have just gone straight to whatever your success was.
Absolutely. And I almost think back to what I'm calling my Maverick move of being just saying yes even when you don't feel ready or aren't ready, that in itself is a pivot, right? You're allowing yourself to pivot by just saying yes. Being like, all right, I don't know what it's going to throw at me. Bring it on. What's next?
Yeah.
It's exciting, but you're right. You've got to let go of that fear, because I think the fear can hold you back so much. Those like insecurities, the inferiorities, etc.
We talk about being unapologetically fearless here. So.
Absolutely. What's the definition of a maverick, isn't it?
Yeah, let's work on that. So now we are going to go into what I like to call our lightning round.
Oh, I love it.
Yes.
Bring it on.
This is exciting. Okay. So Maverick moves often mean bending the rules. What's a leadership rule you love to bend or even break, and why?
Oh, I know this one straight away. For me, it's about being a human with my team. They know that I'm not keeping them at an arm's distance. In fact, I love going out for dinner with my team. I love being able to share my personal life and have them reciprocate. I know that that's probably an unpopular leadership trait in maybe the older generations or in traditional leadership. But for me, I'm so relational, and so I break that rule so often. I love nothing more than going out for a drink with my team. Yes, boundaries are important. Yes, you have to be able to have those, leader versus peer boundaries. I get that. But I think there is something so human when you can turn up with your team and be really vulnerable. Like my team know me. We have a Monday meeting every Monday called Monday Momentum Setting, and it's about us setting the right momentum for the week. There's weeks where I turn up and I'm like, hey guys, I had a really tough weekend. Like actually this week getting momentum is going to take me a little bit. What I love about it is that when you have the right team, they rally behind you. And when I know some of my team are struggling, I can rally behind them too. And if you don't have that humanized aspect, I'm so not doing this quickly, Regina. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
But if you forget the human element, it's like, what are we doing this for?
Yeah. And you have to be vulnerable, because there are times, I remember one time, I'm talking on the phone all the way back from LA. I was riding on no gas, I think, halfway through. So I looked down and I was so embarrassed because I wasn't going to make it to the gas station. So I had to ask one of my guys, it's like, hey, I've got a little problem here. Exactly. But it's having that relationship that, that is going to, and we made it to the gas station, no problem. And he gave me a little lecture about why it's not good to almost run out of gas. But again, when you build that relationship, when you have that trust, I mean, that's what the team aspect is.
Absolutely. Your team will turn up for you when you need them.
Absolutely. Okay.
I'll try to be quick on the next one.
Okay. Empathy isn't exactly the first thing people associate with technology. How do you make empathy your superpower without losing your edge?
Oh,
do you need to phone a friend on that one?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think it's just acknowledging that for all of the amazingness that technology brings us, it will never replace the human connection. And so for me, you could tell Copilot or ChatGPT and ask it for all of the advice in the world. It's probably still not going to make up for what heart-to-heart empathy can.
I agree with that. If you could give your younger self one leadership pep talk before diving into this transformation, what would it be?
I love this. I would say for me, probably learning emotional control a little bit earlier would have set me up for even greater success. And that's not to say you don't turn up as the authentic version of yourself, but I think it is really important to be able to strategically and authentically control your emotions in a work setting. I think I've had more than a couple of moments where I get some tears in my eyes. It's just like a human reaction for me. I wish I could stop that in a sense, but I also know that it's what makes me human. But I think getting a little bit of toughness for me is probably one thing I would have learned a little earlier.
You know what? I think you're perfect the way you are.
Thanks.
I look back and I was the same way, but you know what? I don't think I would change it, only because that is who I am.
Yeah,
And no matter how hard you work on it, You may not ever be a patient person. And I think people, that's predictable to your people, right? And I think they probably enjoy it because they're probably talking about it behind your back saying, did you see what she said? It's always good entertainment, isn't it, though?
Who knew I was coming here for a pep talk from Gina today? Thank you for the encouragement. I love it.
No, because when I look back at mine, it's the same thing. It's like, I tell people that, it's our imperfections that make us extraordinary.
You're right.
Right?
You're so right.
You are perfect. I knew that before you walked in. I can tell your husband that. He knows that too. Okay, so what's one Maverick move you're most proud of besides the move from Australia?
Oh, I would say it has been my jump into a global role over the last 4 years. Wasn't something that I saw coming, wasn't something that I was looking for. Definitely was the most challenging thing I've ever done. But it's just had so many benefits, so much reward and so much pride behind it. So I think, again, it's just yet another example of when you say yes, even when you don't feel ready, the world just kind of opens for you.
That is the best way to end this, because really that is the theme of the show, is say yes now, because you could always get ready later.
Absolutely. And you might actually find that you're more ready than you think you are too.
I agree.
Which I think is a really exciting place to have.
Roz, thank you for being on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Making Maverick Moves with Gina L. Osborne is produced and edited by Zill Media. Connect with us on social media at GinaLOsborne.com/Making Maverick Moves. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe to Making Maverick Moves wherever you get your podcasts.